number of issues directly connected to the interplay of economy and technology. Based in China, we also have a New York office, and we consider ourselves one of the companies bridging the information gap between China and the rest of the world. And we are active across several industries, including automotive, finance, education, healthcare, manufacturing, enterprise services, retail, and so on. So we are following both the industry trends and the most promising companies that have a potential to become game changers in the future. You can check out on EqualOcean.com, EO 500 list. Those are the companies in our virtual portfolio that we are closely following. And we, of course, we are also keeping close tabs at on a regulatory environment, especially in China, where it matters more than anywhere else in the world. And here comes blockchain. Last year, the president of China made a statement that triggered the whole country to study blockchain. And for us, it was like a red flag, right? Those among the biggest triggers for us to write and publish a comprehensive study on the new industry. So we have completed this industry report, Blockchain China Story, where we depict the whole blockchain ecosystem in the country. Again, regulatory environment. We also talk about some companies, both the tech giants and small startups in this report. And yes, you can actually scan the QR code and check out the whole study, the contents, and the sample of slides. It's all on our website. But the most, I think, important one among the reasons why we studied blockchain is that China is one of the biggest hubs of blockchain around the world, and we can get in touch with the people, the industry insiders that are working on real problems here and again everywhere else. So this is what we did, and this is what we are doing right now. We have 4 speakers from all around the world again, and those speakers are all have exceptional profiles in their market segments, if we call it market segments, and all represent the blockchain intelligence sector. So first of all, we have Antonio Grasso, who is one of the biggest figures in Europe when it comes to technology of any type, including blockchain, of course. He has been collaborating with global technology companies such as Ericsson, Huawei, IBM, Intel, and he has also been an advisor for many startups. So thanks for coming. We also have William Genovese, who is representing Huawei. Right now, he's a vice president of corporate strategy planning for banking and financial markets. And yes, he has a huge career in tech. He has been working in different locations all around the world for companies such as IBM, KPMG, Wells Fargo Bank. So now he's responsible for the development of Huawei's strategy in the financial services sector. And he's also keeping close tabs on blockchain and blockchain applications, which is more important. Thanks for coming, William.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah. We also have Mark Xuan, who is a co-founder of Ziggurat IT, a Xi'an-based company that has a lot of IP, over 200 patents and software copyrights. And the company is a former member of Hyperledger. It is focusing on blockchain applications in the financial and public fields, probably the most feasible applications we have right now. Thanks for coming, Mark. Cao Jing, Fu Zamei. Yes. Have you fixed your camera?
Not yet. Still have problems.
Great. And yes, the last but not the least is Cao Jing. He's representing Fu Zamei, and we had a brief conversation before the session. He said he's a native Hangzhou, a native Zhejiang person.
Yeah.
And in some ways, he's representing the Alibaba's infrastructure. So now he's a vice president at Fu Zamei. Fu Zamei is the company that has developed now open source architecture Chain 33. And
yes,
this is one of a few probably local blockchain startups that are working on in-house build architecture in China. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. Okay.
And yeah, that's it. Let's kick off. The discussion will be moderated by another analyst at EqualOcean, Chenli Shuhong, who I'm turning it. Oh, is it? Okay, there's some echo, right? So yeah, Shuhong, thank you, and let's kick off the discussion. I'm turning myself into a listener.
Sure, thank you, Ivan. And also thanks again for our guest speakers and audience for being here. So let's kick it off. What we have to cover is so broad that we could basically talk it for several days, which is impossible. So we'll end in time, and I would like to start with William and Mark for the topic of blockchain as concept. So as you all know, blockchain has been a buzzword for a while, but only a small proportion of people can boast a clear understanding of the technology. At least while I was complete my recent report, it took me a while to really set my arms around of what it is. So just to make sure we are all on the same page, can you maybe one more time explain it in flat words? So what is blockchain? What's the value of it, and how to use it in real world? So how about we start from William?
Thank you. Yeah, so I'd like to add, I've been working in this space for quite some time, even before Huawei and the tail end when I left IBM. And the first thing I'd like to leave everybody with, at least from my perspective and many others out there, blockchain is not a single technology. Okay, it's a basket of technologies really in a layered architecture or tech stack consisting of an application layer, services and optional components, protocols, okay, different types of consensus protocols in terms of the engine that based on the application will use different selected protocols. And right now that can be viewed as a benefit or perhaps still kind of a hindrance in the space, as there's still 75 plus protocols out there in the world driving blockchain stacks. Okay, so that's really the third layer. And then you have the network layer, okay, and you have an infrastructure layer, okay, where blockchain as a service is running in cloud environments to control nodes. So that's really the first thing I'd kind of like to answer the question with is it's not one single technology, and how each company and technology firm architects that can be quite different.
Yeah. Also, let me add that blockchain is a technology that falls in distributed ledger technology, the DLTs. DLTs are a kind of technology that permit, using cryptography, permit to assign a different value, a different purpose to data. Our world is a world that is relying ever more on data. So I think blockchain will be, will be ever more the foundation of a layer that can serve in the stack the service that are up in the stack, as Bill was saying, in the application side, etc. But if we watch closely blockchain is essentially is an easy technology. You know, using the hash, using an algorithm to calculate secure calculate hash. The hash is a digest of an informatic evidence of a document, or it can be a string, etc. So it's pretty simple. The way how blockchain can concatenate information to obtain a new string, a new hash that witness the genuinity of the preceding of the previous data information. So blockchain is a very interesting technology, but now I think we need to go forward. We need to try to figure out how to inject, let me say, inject blockchain in the business process that are dominating our world. Our digital world is the DNA, the processes that can be transaction, can be imagined in the next future. So I think blockchain is a very interesting technology, but we are in the early stage of discovering the real impact of blockchain on our society, because it's not only a kind of technology that will let us make things faster, like we are using before. You know, the role of technology is changing in our digitally transforming world. And I think blockchain is a good example of how a technology can impact on our life. You know, with blockchain, you can also manage public registry. You can go we can talk about smart contracts. We can talk about decentralized autonomous organization. So I think it's something big, but now we are in the early stage. But as every big thing has a small beginning, maybe.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting idea. So how about Mark? Would you like to share with us some insights on this topic? Sorry, Mark, could you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Thank you. Please.
So in my opinion, that blockchain is a digital mechanism, maybe to create a distributed ledger on which two or more participate in a peer-to-peer network, which can exchange information and digital assets directly without the need for a trusted intermediary. And it means that you can do business unknown partner located anywhere on the planet and trade any assets, any transaction site, and no need a lawyer, a bank, or insurance company. Also, it's making sure both of you follow through on what you have promised to do. Such a solution vastly extends, I think, the range of assets and the business could trade. So the arrangement also greatly increases who or what a business could directly trade without needing a third party. So the blockchain is already widely used in cross-border trade, also supply chain finance, data governance, and credit inquiry. So it can help to build a more trusted and reliable network for exchange of data and digital assets. Yes, and that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. And Mr. Sao, would you like to share with us, please?
Yeah. The other three guys have explained the concept of blockchain in their mind, and I want to explain it in another way. I mean, in the economics way. That, in my mind, blockchain is not only just a technique. It can be also be regarded as another concept, and in economics, it is decentralization. because in the past several years, we have introduced blockchain tech to those peoples again and again. And we got answer or got question that why do we need use blockchain? We can use the existing software or existing internet technique to solve all our problems. We do not need blockchain. I think maybe the other guys have also that kind of experience. So we tell them that blockchain is not just only a technique, it's another kind of ideology that could create another scenery or create another world that anyone or a part of one, they could build their commerce without any kind of corporation. They could build a DAO to do their business. Maybe it's another kind of concept of blockchain. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Song. I really like your idea on decentralization. So how about we continue with this topic? I noticed that the blockchain trilemma is kind of a hot topic in the industry. So it tells us that scalability, security, and decentralization for now cannot be achieved at the same time. So I wonder, is it a real problem for you? And if so, how should business address this problem? Sorry, Mr. Sao, would you like to share some idea regarding this?
Sorry. Trilemma has, blockchain trilemma has talked around 2 or 3 years, and there were two or three versions of this trilemma. And I have read a lot of articles about it. It is compared with another theory of CAP in computer, yeah. And I agree that actually such kind of trilemma could be concluded as a balance between scalability and tolerance. I mean, the partition of tolerance. There is just two paraments to balance. On blockchain, we could say that all our technicians are doing is to balance these two things. One is scalability, another is decentralization, to be fit in different scenarios. For example, if we just needed to use an application for transactions between consumers and consumers, C2C, we do not need such kind of scalability, just like a Bitcoin blockchain. People could accept such kind of slow speed, but with high consistency. But if we use it in supply chain scenario, that could not be accepted. So we could use it like EOS. It's just the balance between these two paraments. It's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Interesting idea. And I wonder if other gentlemen would like to share their insights on this topic.
Yes, I completely agree about that the impact on the business is different. That is not only related to technology, but let me say, when we talk about business, we talk about businesses. When we talk about economics, we talk also about business process, and we need something that can add trust to this kind of procedure, this kind of operation. Going back to what you said before, that for example, e-commerce, for example, consumer, yes, but also in the energy sector, imagine how our society, our economy is changing in the energy sector. Many people are that are now our consumer. They are becoming also producer of energy. So I think in the near future we will see a new kind of figure can be a prosumer, that is something producer and consumer. And also we need a technology that can tie together, try to satisfy also the transaction using and interacting with other technology. For example, Internet of Things. We are talking about objects that are smart, that can create data, can interact with others. So it's not more only people to people, consumers to consumer, or prosumer, or business to business, but it's also something that we also, with things, with objects that are becoming ever more autonomous. When we talk about autonomous objects, or can be vehicle, can be, let me say, fridge, we need a technology that can transport, that can manage the transaction between these new kind of subject that are no more people, not only people, but can be people to machine or machine to machine. So I think blockchain in business with smart contracts can be really a good fit. But the problem also of blockchain, you know, as technology, as an eminent technology, is also the deployment. If you deploy blockchain not in public, can be not trustable as if you deploy in private, is not trustable as you deploy in consortium or in public. So the scenario will be really complex. But returning to the initial adoption by business, I think we need to orchestrate all the components about blockchain, because no, blockchain is not only a technology, it's a philosophy. I completely agree with that kind of statement. But also we need to adapt blockchain to our needs in terms of business process, automation, intelligent automation, Internet of Things, and on top of that, cognitive system that can try to add more value to the technology chain or to the technology stack. It's my view.
Okay, I got
the microphone is muted, the microphone.
Sorry. So very good point, Tony. And seems like Mark would like to share some of his ideas. So would you like to talk something with us, Mark?
I completely agree with Mr. Tsang's opinion that I think a blockchain trilemma is a real problem among especially among public blockchains. And I think the key to solve this problem is to find out a way to keep the balance. Because there's nothing absolute in this world, and there's no absolute security, absolute decentralizations, such as Bitcoin. It uses proof of work to reach the consensus. And there are millions of computers and miners and nodes are working for Bitcoin network to keep the system running, which makes Bitcoin very safe. But the problem is due to so many nodes, so many participants, that it makes Bitcoin network can very slow. So it only have maybe 5 or 7 TPS. So people start to develop the Lightning network to make Bitcoin work faster. But of course, the Lightning network needs to sacrifice a little bit of security of Bitcoin. And also there are new consensus such as EOS. It uses DPoS as the consensus. That there are only 21 nodes in EOS. So it can reach a better performance than Ethereum or Bitcoin. And all the nodes are elected by EOS community so that it can make sure the operator of the nodes of EOS is reliable and trusted. So I think it's a relative problem. There are no absolute security. There are no absolute decentralizations. The key is the balance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And let's switch this topic to a more specific area and talk about blockchain China. And this will be a question to William. So in the blockchain industry, some bad and good news came from China in 2019. We at EqualOcean informed that over 70 projects shut down their door last year. At the same time, most of them was either cryptocurrency scams or just economically insufficient. So how would you describe the overall situation around blockchain China and the current stage of industry development? Please, William.
Thank you. I mean, I wanted to touch on the last question a bit. I'll briefly, before I go into this, because I think it kind of goes into this a bit too, okay? And I've seen this around the world a bit in terms of security, the trilemma with decentralization, you know, but this goes back to many, many years in IBM and systems engineering. What we're talking about with security and decentralization are givens, okay? You cannot have a light bulb that doesn't light, otherwise nobody will use it. That's the analogy I'm using. A blockchain came out and the stack of technology came out because it's supposed to solve a problem of security and decentralization. So you cannot look at the problem and say, well, it's a balancing act and I'll give up security to have decentralization. It will never get into the enterprise. It has to be secure. It has to be a hybrid of decentralization and centralization at a minimum as an architectural given. So the philosophy that we've kind of put in place for Huawei is actually 5 principles, okay? And it's all around adoption into enterprises, okay? And that's where I'm going into the next question, because most of the use cases, over 51% based on the proof of work protocol, have been trade finance and supply chain finance in the big companies in the world, okay? And that is addressing the issues of the architectural principles, namely starting with security. Okay, they're not, the big banks are not going to use blockchain unless it's secure. That's not a balancing question. It has to be secure. There's no question. Okay, banks are not going to trade finance and do supply chain finance if it's a question mark. It's not up for negotiation. Blockchain has to be secure. The other principles that we came out with are performance and scalability. If it doesn't scale, if your blockchain doesn't scale, nobody's going to use it, bottom line. If Visa's sending millions of transactions and legacy systems are really scaling, blockchain is not going to disrupt that, bottom line. Okay, identity management and privacy. Once again, it's got to protect individuals' identity and it has to be private from the endpoint through the network and into the cloud, okay? The integration, if you're working with Ethereum or private blockchains, it has to be integrated between on and off chain. Okay, ideally, if you want to bring it into an enterprise, a corporation, corporations are not adopting public blockchains right now. It's all permissionless, okay? And then the other two points I'd like to bring up in terms of the principles, it needs to interoperate or it needs to program across different protocols. Okay, that's the nirvana. Okay, if it's not interoperable or cross-programmable across consensus protocols, the enterprises are not going to use it. And then finally, back to my last point, and then going into China a bit, you know, what are the use cases? What is it being positioned to solve? What's the business problem? And I mentioned 51% are focused on trade finance and supply chain finance. Then there's amalgamation or an aggregation of digital assets, cryptocurrency, all kinds of other things that kind of fall in a bucket of other, you know, other than digital assets or cryptocurrency. So my observation in being here, okay, you know, for the last 4 years and working in Huawei, we're focused on supply chain finance, trade finance, and payments. Okay, so putting blockchain under digital wallets, okay, mobile payments, remittances, cross-border remittances, that's a key use case, okay? But like I said, in the 4 years that I've been here, I've seen a lot of hype, but there's a lot of hype everywhere, okay? There's a lot of hype in a lot of countries and adopting it. But you know, Xi Jinping has come out when he made the announcement to endorse blockchain that this was not an open door to have a lot of hype in terms of fake solutions or hype solutions. You know, it needs to really be the underpinning infrastructure for the economy in the country, okay? And once again, back to the points I made earlier, it's not a trilemma. Xi Jinping and China are not going to have something that's not secure, okay? It has to be secure if it's going to underpin the economy and the infrastructure, okay?
Okay, thank you, William. I really like your idea on the basic fundamental principles of blockchain. And so how about we going on discussing the two kind of mainstream paths in the blockchain industry, which is permission chains and public chains. So this will be a question for Mr. Cao. From my understanding from what William just said is that permission chain provides more practical scenarios and higher level of security, for sure. So also according to our research, permission chain currently have more real-world business application than public chains. So as I noticed, Fuzame is now developing chains with infrastructures, which is hoping to integrate public chains and permission chains together. So I wonder how you're concerned about this permission chain versus public chains.
And I think permission chain and the public chain has a very similar comparison with internet and the LAN. In my mind, permission chain is a replacement in a long term. I mean, in the transition stage. Of course, permission chain has a very good scalability. Just like LAN, it has been existing around 20 years, and it's also playing a great and important role in many enterprises inside, like bank, right? But no one could deny that today internet has become the biggest environment or circumstance for commerce. LAN could be only used in one or two enterprises. It could not be used inter companies, or to consumers. LAN is not okay. Only internet, such kind of organization is accepted by consumers. And today, permission chain is playing a great role, and such kind of status will last a long time. But in my mind, public chain will be the final status for blockchain. Okay, that's it. You're on mute.
Sorry, I wonder if you could share with us more about your idea on public chain is the final destination of the entire industry.
Okay, just as I have mentioned, blockchain, the core of blockchain in my mind is decentralization. And the permission chain has not such kind of feature. It is, yeah, okay. So why permission chain could be popular today? I think there are two reasons. The first, permission chain has not get in touch with, I don't know the English name. I mean, it could not create currencies, right? But public chain could. And it has affected some of existing profit groups. So public chain is not accepted in a lot of industries. And the second is public chain is quite a new one. It has also a lot of problems, and these problems could not be solved under such kind of society or under the existing law. So we could find a lot of frauds, cheats, and no one or no government could have a correct way to solve it. So what they could do is just shut it down or just refuse it, not trying to find a way to cultivate or repair it.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Song. Wonder if other gentlemen would like to comment anything on this topic or comment on the ideas shared by previous guest speakers.
Yeah. Yes, let me say that decentralization is very important. That is one of the main aspects. But also we need to watch another, that is disintermediation, because blockchain has potentially the power to change really completely our interaction, our economy, and our. So I think public chain can be used for example, they are the perfect fit for a public registry, while some other kind of chain or the confluence of on-chain off-chain data can be also used in a business, in enterprise environment, or in a supply chain environment. But I think the public deployment of blockchain is the only way to preserve integrity, immutability, security. Depend on the deployment, depend on the requirements of the project. Not everyone fits all. This is my view.
Thank you, Antonio. And how about we move on to the next topic, which we're narrowing down the scope a little bit to talk about the regulatory environments in Chinese markets. And this will be a question for Bill and Mark. So the October remark of President Xi Jinping encouraging economy to opt for blockchain as a national focus of a national focus of innovation seems to be staying the industry development. So how can this affect the status quo, and this has been changed since then? So how about we start from Mark?
Okay. So first, let me answer William's question that I still believe that there's no absolute secure blockchain in this world right now. Even Bitcoin, that more than 50% of the miners is controlled under Bitmain. So theoretically, Bitmain can change the data of Bitcoin. So there's no absolute secure blockchain. I want to make a brief introduction of the Chinese blockchain industry. That we usually divided Chinese blockchain industry into two parts. And one part is the public blockchain, and the other is consortium blockchain or permission blockchain. And for public blockchain, there are the different participants like exchange. We have OK Exchange. We have Huawei. We have Binance, and we also have miners like Bitmain and Canon. And also we have many ICO projects in China. So the public blockchain used to be very popular in 2017 and 2018, and a similar situation is also happening all over the world. But this period that brought more people know about blockchain. They know the benefits. They know blockchain is a new technology. But it also brought many problems like fraud and cheating. That many people use this technology to cheat. So many people lost their money. So Chinese government still holds a negative attitude towards public blockchain right now. And also for the consortium blockchain system, it is a more regulated system, and it's healthier. And most of the participants in this market, the buyers are enterprises and governments. So they use this technology to empower the industry. They use it to increase the efficiency, to lower the cost, and to secure their data and protect their privacy. So I think the key for the use or application of consortium blockchain is on the industrial internet, or and blockchain need to have a better and more cooperation with other technologies like IoT, big data, and artificial intelligence. So the remark of President Xi in October is a very remarkable moment for Chinese blockchain industry. And since then, I think it has a very strong push on this industry. So maybe 20 or 30 years ago, that people say that we need to put our data in a centralized database. It means we can increase our efficiency to manage our data. And maybe 10 years ago, we said that we want all the data to go cloud because it can save on cost. But in the recent maybe 1 or 2 years, that people started to realize that when to put our data on the blockchain, it means that our data is safe. And also, blockchain has become a part of the new infrastructure of China, which is same as the cloud and artificial intelligence. So the Chinese government actually gives many support to this to blockchain. Like it opened many scenarios to blockchain companies like e-government, smart city, and tax. And also in many infrastructure, like the industrial network, internet, or the communication network that we are using blockchain to build the fundamental infrastructure for the data and asset. So I think that the government support is very important for this this industry, because right now there's almost no blockchain company can make money right now. They need to get more support from the government, from the society, because it's an infrastructure. It needs to have more investment in this industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Sorry, I wonder, like, if you have seen after this remark made by President Xi, did you see any like more potential clients reaching out to you and more others coming up to your companies?
Yes, actually, I think since the October 2019, that Ziggurat has more businesses with government of China, actually. And there are many people from enterprises that also want us to make some consulting services to their business, like we use blockchain to do the goods traceability, and we're getting involved in some supply chain finance projects, and we also want to, I think one of the most useful function for blockchain is to protect the privacy or secure the data. So we are also participating in some construction of the smart city in China. So I think that's all. That's some positive influence since October 2019. Yes, and it gives more opportunities to this to Chinese blockchain company. Yes.
Thank you, Mark. Glad to hear. And I wonder about William. Would you like to share some ideas regarding this topic? Sorry.
Yeah. So going back to that point, once again, though, when the world's been working on blockchain now for at least a decade. Okay, and when it came out, it was marketed and touted across the world, and including in China, that this is a better solution because it's more secure than legacy systems in the current version of the internet. So still, that's still, not a trade-off. Okay, if something is supposed to be better than what's already in place that the world's used, it's got to be better. So it needs to be more secure. Okay, I also agree with what he said on the last point. We've been working on this as a planet, all of the countries, for a decade. It's not gotten that far. Okay, and he brought up the point about convergence with other technologies. For blockchain really to take off and get adopted by both consumers and enterprises, it needs to converge with other tech, IoT, big data, and AI. That should help solve a lot of those architectural principles I brought up earlier, plus security. So that's a key point too. And finally, I see it, definitely in China, is, from a country technology strategy perspective, Xi Jinping just made the announcement this week on the blockchain services network. Okay, so that's almost the next generation of the internet, okay, coming out of China. And so that's very, very important for its success to go outside China in terms of something new that the whole world to use. It needs to be able to build bridges between the old and the new. Okay, we cannot have the assumption that everything that's been put in place to date will just disappear and this will replace it. Okay, I think that's a false fallacy. We need to be able to evolve this new blockchain services network into open standards that are secure, that the whole world can use it in terms of the next generation of the internet. So, okay.
Okay, very good points. Thank you. So, opening the scope a little bit from China focusing, we had, of course, as we have speakers living outside of the country, I wonder how was the regulatory environment in your place, Antonio, and also in Europe? So how exactly the policymakers helped?
Yes. Okay, let me see. In Italy and Europe, we have no such a baked bag of awareness, such endorsement bag of awareness. You know, we are moving about how we can deal with how the government can deal with this emerging technology, because especially in cryptocurrency, they are involved in many aspects that are not only technology. No, they are not technology. For example, one of the big obstacles to cryptocurrency can be the money laundering related issues. So we are watching in Europe, but as try to understand which kind of regulation we need to put in action, but we also don't want to stop the progress, stop the technology. So European Commission has created a team of experts, mostly lawyers and professors, to try to understand how to manage with these issues that are related to cryptocurrency, that use, as you know, use blockchain as authenticator, as a database, as storage, as a transaction witness. So we have not such a move in Europe like you have in China. You know, Xi Jinping has endorsed this technology, and I think many economic incentives and benefits can be brought to startups that are creating patents, creating innovation. You know, many startups and innovation is something that creates future. So it's important. But to respond to your question, no, in Italy, in Europe, we have no such a kind of endorsement. We are watching this technology, and let me say, sometimes I was watching a bit suspicious about it. Not me, because I understand what is. So I know that, but you know, our politicians, they are wondering how to move, because it's not only, you know, as I said before, decentralization, but you have also disintermediation. What will be the role of the banks in the future where cryptocurrency are spreading? So it's something that they're thinking, and they are trying to create a model to refer to for the next development and next adoption of the technology, also in the financial sector. Thank you.
Thank you for your insightful sharing, Antonio. And let's talk about some situations in the recent days. Unfortunately, we are in the middle of the coronavirus outbreak, probably the most significant of the latest global game changes. We cannot avoid this topic. And how about we have discussed on this one with Mr. Cao. So we see that Fuzame has launched donation solution platforms in recent days. So could you share with us how can we leverage the technology to meet the current challenges?
Yes, I think one important aspect of the adoption of this technology to address is, let me say, managing contact tracing. You know, let the contact tracing, because you know, a lot of bits, a lot of numbers are, we had privacy problem, issue problem about sensitive data. I think a distributed ledger technology can help us to manage, to store the history of tracing of a patient, you know, of a potential patient. So I think now, in my mind, yes, contact tracing is the first needs for COVID-19 that can involve a distributed ledger like a blockchain. In my view, I think in my view, yes, contact tracing.
Thank you. So how about Mr. Cao?
As I have just mentioned, blockchain, the core of blockchain is decentralization. And in such kind of disaster, what blockchain could do is to rebuild the distrust situation. I can say just one simple example. In our what we got news, it is said that American think we do not give the world the real data about this disaster in China, right? And they said just because of it, the Western countries have not got enough time to defend it. But in China's doctors said they have given them the real data in January. It's around the 15th January. That data is real, but the Western don't believe it, right? Okay. And in China, Chinese also don't trust what they have done in the US and in Europe, because all the information we got does not come from the mouth of those citizens in other countries, but from government, right? And even those medias like VOA, even the president, Donald Trump, doesn't trust him either. So each part does not trust each other. That's a big problem for us. But if all the informations we need or we want to use comes from ourselves, just like I often looked at the net in China. Maybe Su Hong is familiar with it. It's Bilibili or Douyin. All this information comes from those common people, not from any media or any newspaper or television. And we trust those information. If an Italian or an American people just use his camera and record what he has seen or what he has listened to or has heard and put it on the internet, and we Chinese saw it, we like to trust it, right? So it is what we as a blockchain industry need to do, is rebuild such kind of trust circumstance. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cao. And last of all, so one last question for all of you four guest speakers. Let's talk about future of the blockchain. So could you share with us just in a few words, what will 2020 bring to the blockchain technology? So how about we start from William?
So that's a very good question. I mean, I'm very encouraged by what I see in China, because China's setting a very good example, for example, with the digital currency and the use of blockchain to bridge the worlds and the infrastructure underneath industry models. So e-commerce and the financial services industry, but most importantly at a higher level, which needs to be done all over the world, bridging the real economy, okay, which are you and me and what we do in our daily lives, with the institutions, okay, the banks. Okay, and right now we're seeing by this crisis all over the world, those are separated. Certainly seeing it in my country. Okay, the institution, the Fed, is trying to print more and more money, Okay, but that's not fast enough for people losing their jobs. And China's suffering from this too, due to this crisis. So it's a really good idea. And I'm seeing this coming out in 2020, starting in China with the digital RMB and the blockchain services network, to start using the digital currency on the BSN to connect all the parties together in a trust fabric. That's what Huawei calls it anyway, the trust fabric. Okay, but most importantly, the objective is going to be an improvement of connecting the real economy with the backbone, which are the banks. Okay, and that's not always been seamless. I mean, and it's been a problem throughout our whole world history. So I'm seeing and I'm hopeful to see more and more of that being focused on in China and other countries, with central banks moving in the direction of digital currencies and using blockchain. So,
okay, thank you for your idea, William. So how about Antonio? Would you like to share with us some ideas about what will 2020 brings to blockchain technology?
Yes. Let me say that I think in the near future, we will see even more the convergence of two or more technology, and I think blockchain can be very helpful to orchestrate also all the transition that are emerging from digitalization. Digital diffusion is opening a new way of doing business. So it's opening a new business model. But not only one technology can play alone the role. I think the convergence of two or many technology can create more value that one itself. For example, if blockchain value of one has value that can add to the business, Internet of Things has another one unit of value, AI has another unit of value. Together, the sum is not 3. I think together the sum will be 5. So I think we need to foster this kind of merging of technology. I think we are on the way. So 2020, I think, is the very starting point after, the first, let me say, exuberance, irrational exuberance about blockchain. Now we have identified blockchain that is very important for our progress, for our economy, for our society. So I think we can harness the benefits of blockchain, inserting it, working with other technology to create more value than ever. This is my view. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. So how about Mark?
I think that blockchain will definitely driven by real economy, because it has been proved that a blockchain without real economy is a failure during last 2 years. And I think as the infrastructure of the digital asset and the data, and blockchain will have a very good performance in 2020, because after the COVID-19, that we are facing the decrease of economy. And I believe that the trade war between China and America will upgrade. So the conflict will be sharpened than before. So the next stage that we are facing, the fighting of the ownership of data and the ownership of the currencies. So, and China is also under the procedures of the globalization of RMB. So no matter whether it's for the currency, for the data, and for the digital asset, the blockchain is one of the most important infrastructure in these procedures. So I think 2020 will bring a blockchain, a larger market, and more participants and more opportunities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So here we comes to Mr. Cao.
Okay. Although I am very optimistic to the future of blockchain, but frankly, I'm still very pessimistic to the current situation of blockchain, especially in China. Even since October 2019, we have got a strong change of from our customers. Before that day, a lot of customers could belong to the public chain customers, and after that day, I mean the October 24th, most of inquiries is about the permission chain, right? And we must admit that in China, a lot of such kind of inquiries and such kind of demands are not real demands. Maybe you understand, or Mark understand, and William, Antonio, maybe don't have such kind of agreement. It's a little related with the last question. In my mind, such kind of government support of blockchain in China is good thing. It helps many people to begin to to learn and have a part of the understanding about blockchain, not just a Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, because government encourages them to do something about blockchain, right? But I think there needs to be a condition that we should not sacrifice those attempts of public chains application. I think this is condition. So maybe someone have ever read articles about the situation, the survival of public chain in China. They have no space to survive in the past 1 year. There is few demand for public chain. After all, it's a very early stage for public chain and for blockchain. It is not normal for so many demands for blockchain, even permission blockchain, right? But I said it's a good thing, especially for any new one, technique new one. They could understand or could have a recognition about this new technique. And in my opinion, it will be a plain year to 2020 for blockchain. It has almost passed half of this year. Nothing has changed. But people gradually understand the feature of blockchain is not only its technique, but also ideology, as I has just mentioned. Just like a case, a China company have done a disgraceful thing in US. Maybe you know, it's Lucky Coffee, right? Yes, it has made so many records. We can imagine if these sales records were recorded on a third-party public chain, maybe such kind of things will not happen. But this is just the imagination. No one would do it because it's a little far from the reality. And the second thing is till now, blockchain's application has just stayed at the transaction, like Bitcoin. People could not use it to do a lot of things, just like payment, because in China, there is no stable coin like USDT. Even USDT is not legal in a lot of commerce in Western, maybe I think. So we are looking forward to dissect, although no one has ever seen what it is. But it is a very necessary thing for its commercial application, blockchain's commercial application. It's basic. So what is my expectation for the development of blockchain in China is the stable coin in China. One day, the stable coin, or we said RMBT appears, the spring of blockchain in China will come truly. Thank you.
Very insightful idea. Thank you, Mr. Cao. It has been a great discussion today. I've learned a lot. I just want to say thank you for your time and the efforts you took to share your thoughts and experience. And now we came to the Q&A session. Our marketing manager, Eisen, have collected several interesting questions from our audience, and I would like to share with you the most interesting one, I think. So it's from Chen Liang. It says that smart contract is a very trendy topic right now. However, she thinks that the smart contract could not provide a link between physical words and virtual words, which largely decrease the potential of smart contracts. Would you think is it a crucial thing that's to do with the development of smart contracts, and when will be about the phenomenal depth to come into space? Would you like to share with us, any gentlemen?
The key of this question is how to make sure that the data on the blockchain is correct. So it has two. There's two technology can make sure that the smart contract can work well, and one is IoT, because the data on blockchain comes from two sources. The one is the real world, the other one is from the internet. So for the data in the real world, that we usually will use IoT to collect all the data, and then we will use the Oracle to make sure that the data, when it's transferred, is safe. So it can make sure that when the data enter smart contract, that all the procedures is being secured. And there is the same reason for the data from the internet. We also will use the Oracle to acquire the data from the reliable source, like some official websites, like some official servers, to collect all the data. So I think this is not a technical problem right now, and it has been already solved. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So any
about,
other please.
Yeah, just to add about smart contracts, we need to differentiate, because we have three great families of smart contracts. We have the smart legal contract, that's something that is used to dematerialize, for paperless. And then we have the apps, the decentralized apps that are pieces of code that are installed, very well distributed, decentralized. And then we have the DAO, the decentralized autonomous organization. So I think the development of this technology, of these three kinds of blockchain deployment adoption is different from, but I think the smart contracts is the future of blockchain, because smart contracts add the business layer to the, let me say, the database, that is the storage, that is secure, immutable, but is storage. We need the business layer, the application layer over the top of this. So I think smart contracts will be mainstream in the next year, because they enable blockchain to be adopted in business processes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Antonio. And here's another question from Adam Farhart to Mr. William. He asks, that's how the new top-down internet proposal by Huawei and Chinese governments will affect the public blockchain in China and the rest of the world. And do you think that will hinder the current efforts made by the international community to connect the world in a public, decentralized, trust public?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and I'm not even going to pretend to say that I have all the answers there. Okay, it's very controversial, and I don't think that's been completely thought through yet. Okay, you know, on one side of that, there's a fear of decoupling of technology between the superpowers, China and the United States, and even Russia having 3 separate internets. You know, and then the second half of your question, when I said the trust fabric, that's not referring to any proposal with Huawei and the Chinese government putting together a new internet. The trust fabric is what we've referred to as our blockchain service that's running on Huawei cloud. Okay, so those are two separate different things entirely. But I don't know. I think it's very early stages. I would venture to say the best outcome would be one of open standards. Okay, so what is proposed is evolving the internet for all countries to use. So we don't get into a decoupling of technology, and like I said earlier, we don't have 3 separate internets, you know, one in China, one in Russia, and one in the West per se, or even the United States. So there's an opportunity here for, once again, the world to work together to evolve the internet and make it something better together, okay, not independently. So it remains to be seen. That's all I know. Okay.
Thank you for sharing, William. And I think that's all for today. Thank you again for having you as our guest speakers, and have a beautiful night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.